Frosty the Snowman was a jolly, happy soul with a corncob pipe and a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal. But that is not the man, nay, the snowman, that we will be talking about today. Hi, my name is Summer, and today we're going to be talking about Netflix's latest addition to the NCCU, the Netflix Christmas Cinematic Universe, and their absolutely insane take on Frosty the Snowman, Hot Frosty. Let's get into it. As an old silk top hat with a red ribbon flutters by on an unseen breeze, very much the classic Frosty look we're used to, the movie opens on the world's most rapid narrator saying a lot of words at a rate only slightly slower than the speed of light. I literally paused the movie and went to the settings to make sure that I hadn't accidentally somehow set my Netflix to 2 times speed, which I don't even think is possible on the TV and did not seem to be an option, so it was just how fast this guy was talking. Anyway, the auctioneer / Hot Frosty narrator says something along the lines of, "You've probably heard a lot of Christmas tales, but you never heard a Christmas tale like this." Boom! Silk top hat gets run over by a truck, hard cut to a house covered in Christmas decorations, and then a pan to a house absolutely not covered in Christmas decorations. And that is where we meet our movie's star, Christmas princess Lacey Chabert. She plays Kathy, the romantic lead of this Christmas rom-com, and we are shown that her house is undecorated, and she's got a heater pointed towards her bed, and she immediately puts a hat on as soon as she wakes up and takes a blanket and a comforter downstairs because her house is just so cold. And I was like, okay, fun dynamic. I see where we're getting started. We're going to have a sort of grinchy, doesn't like Christmas, loves the summer and hates the cold, sort of opposite attracts vibe here with this romantic comedy where she falls in love with a snowman. Right? We're all tracking. We're all, yeah, I was wrong. Now, the movie doesn't give everything away right off the bat. We learn the reason behind why her house is freezing and why there's a hole in her stairs and why there's a leak in her ceiling as the story unfolds. And usually, in any other book or movie, I would appreciate this. I appreciate when an author or a screenwriter trusts its audience enough to seed out clues so that the reader or watcher can piece things together in the story at their own pace as the story progresses, and it doesn't spoon feed its audience. But this is a movie called Hot Frosty, and I would like to know exactly why she's single, if it was tragic, her opinion on Christmas, and her friends' opinions on her being single at Christmas before the catalyst happens at the 10-minute mark, and I'll take a soup spoon if you have one. But instead of any of that, because it was treating this movie as if it wasn't an entry into the Netflix Christmas Cinematic Universe, we instead get this long shot of a black and white photo of Kathy and some guy that we has to assume is significant in some way to her because she's posed like this with her hand on his chest, but there's no ring. She's wearing a glove or something, so we don't even know affianced, married. We just know he's a guy in a black and white photo. Okay, we're keeping it a mystery. Keep your secrets. So we just have to assume that this guy is significant to her in some way before she drives her blue car down the cold gray street to the cafe that she owns. The only allusion we get at all to her friends' opinions on her relationship status at this, the most wonderful time of year, is when she crosses the square. I will say that this movie about Frostman the Snowy. I will say that this movie about Frosty the Snowman's wannabe hot older cousin. I don't even know, words are just coming out of my mouth at this point. In this movie, that is a very loose adaptation of Frosty the Snowman, there is a square where people can run here and there. So she crosses this town square. Mitzi, you gotta move. Mitzi, I just touched your butt and it was wet. She cuts across the town square, passing through the snow sculpture competition that's happening to drop lunch off to a kindly older couple who run the local thrift store. And the kindly older wife tells her kindly older husband to kindly go grab a red scarf from the back so she can dispense some kindly wisdom to Kathy. And this is what she said. Basically, she's got this scarf in her arms and she's like, "My mother always said in order to find warmth, you have to go out into the cold. So one day when I was younger, I listened to her advice. I went out into the cold to my favorite pub. I put this red scarf on and I met the love of my life. And the love of her life is just sorting through shirts on like a thrift store rack, and he's like, you and me, there's a guy. This red scarf just came in, and I want you to have it. And Kathy's like, I don't think I need that. And that's all she says. And the lady's like, good things come to you when you're out in the cold, Kathy. And she gives her the scarf. And then they've got this delightfully long insert shot of Kathy like rubbing the scarf one time. And that's it. That's it. Good things come to you when you're out in the cold, Kathy. No details, no ham-fisted exposition, no, it's been X amount of years, Kathy. Don't you think you deserve to be happy? No, but it's Christmas, Kathy, and Christmas is magic. None of it. Not a word. My spoon. Barren. Just this ongoing theme of the cold. Her cold house, her advice to brave the cold, the fact that the costumes are all cool tones, blues and grays, and the fact that even the color grading in the movie makes the world seem frigid would all seem to be the perfect setup for a movie about someone who hated the cold and Christmas falling in love with an actual Christmas snowman. I swear that story is buried somewhere in the heart of this script. It just got lost in the drafts and the rewrites. But no. All we learn is that Kathy is a completely normal woman with an average love of Christmas and a rational and even-tempered reaction to everything. She exits the thrift store, and in the 10 to 15 minutes she was inside, night has fallen and the town square is abandoned by all except the snow sculptures themselves. Now, there is a world where she left the thrift store, went back to her job, worked her shift, and is now wandering the square before going home, but she's not carrying anything except the scarf, which is folded exactly as it was when it was handed to her, and she's clearly working her way back across the town square from the thrift store to where her cafe is. So all we can logically assume is that in the town of Hope Springs, which is where this takes place, night falls at about 1:30 p.m. and everybody scatters the second the sun dips below the horizon. Okay, so it's midnight dark and the square is abandoned, and she is admiring the snow sculptures while she contemplates the scarf. And then she clocks Michelangelo's David, sculpted from snow. It is the only snow sculpture that looks like this. Everything else is like giant cartoonish penguins or classic 3 snowball Frosty the Snow Man. And then all of a sudden you've just got this pile of snow with a man's torso sprouting out of it. And listen, it's a detailed man's torso and arms and face. I'm so sorry to be the one who has to tell you this. I'm really sorry that I have to be the one to tell you this. But the snowman has snipples. Snow nipples. I think a lot of different decisions could have been made between the inception of this idea and the final product being delivered. But we now live in a world where Netflix made a movie called Hot Frosty and the snowman has snipples. And we all have to live with that. One thing to know about this town, and I will go into further detail in just a bit, is that it is populated by the world's thirstiest women. Kathy acts like she's not one of their ilk, but she clearly clocks the buff snowman and beelines straight for him. Now, sure, she looks at the standard classic Frosties flanking him on either side, but he's what caught her eye, okay, Kathy? You're not slick. But we must forgive her because she is clearly just a product of the women who raised her. Anyway, she circles around with the snowman she was obviously making her way to and says, I don't remember what she actually said, except it wasn't anything that further revealed her thoughts on Christmas, who the guy in the photo was, or her feelings on being single at Christmas. And instead, she just takes the scarf and says, you need this more than I do. Probably on account of the snipples. And she wraps the scarf around the neck and shoulders of Michelangelo's Snow David, takes a picture, and leaves, but not before she sees a magical Christmas twinkle in his snowy eye. And then, for no reason at all, without explanation, and I'll spoil it for you right now with no explanation ever, the snowman comes to life. A sparkly little snowy breeze dances up the red scarf, and he's alive! Oh my gosh! And he's naked as the day he was born! Now remember how I said this town is entirely populated by the world's thirstiest women? We see the first of them here, when a cute little old couple is walking their dog through the town square, and the old man goes, "Oh my gosh, that's a naked man." And the wife goes, "Let's investigate," and starts like going toward him. So that's crazy old lady number one. And then while he's running around through the snow, feeling joyous and alive, he accidentally crashes through the window of the thrift store, steals a jumpsuit that says Jack on it and some boots, and the next morning, Kathy finds him talking to his snowman friends and saying, "I should put the scarf on me and now I'm alive." And he and Kathy meet for the first time. And when they meet, shenanigans ensue. He learns the beauty of being alive. She learns to love again, all while the snowman evades the town sheriff, who's on the hunt for the streaking thief who broke the thrift store window and caused so much terror in the town square. And the whole town comes together on Christmas Eve, and miracles and magic are real, and everyone lives happily ever after. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop beat for beat synopsizing because this is a brand new movie, as in it came out today and I watched it in the afternoon, then I wrote the script and I'm filming it now. So I don't want to spoil everything that happens in it. I think it was definitely fun enough to be worth a watch, especially if you can watch it with friends. So instead, I'm going to start bouncing around to my major thoughts on the movie as a whole. And now there are still going to be some spoilers, but let's get into my thoughts and feelings on Hot Frosty. First things first, I think I made it clear that I feel a little underwhelmed by the main character of Kathy. And I think this is because watching this movie, it felt like two movies were trying to be made simultaneously. One movie is the story of a lonely widow learning to love again. And I don't just mean romantic love. I mean learning to love and take care of herself as well. She learns who she is outside of her grief, and only then does she learn how to open herself up to the impossible, which is finding love with someone new. And that's a good story. That's an admirable story, except for the fact that it's shoehorned into a movie called Hot Frosty about a hot snowman that comes to life. I think there was actually the bones of a decent story in there concerning Kathy and her grief, but it's hard to delve into the depths of human emotion when everyone else in the room is trying to make a Netflix Christmas movie where they sexualize Frosty the Snow Man. And that's the thing. All the scenes with Lacey Chabert are played pretty straight. You get these sad shots of her waking up each morning and dumping the water that accumulated from the dripping hole in her ceiling into the kitchen sink. And then you have to watch her like take a big step over the stair that has a giant hole in it. And she's always wearing a blanket and shivering because her house is freezing since her heater needs repairs. And none of this is played for comedy. And instead, we learn that her husband was a handyman. And since he passed, her house has literally started falling down around her. And in her grief, she's shut herself off from others, from her hobbies she used to enjoy, and she's not even able to remember to call the repairman so she doesn't have to wake up cold. And this all sounds like it would add a lot of depth to the character, but it doesn't. You can have movies that balance heartfelt, serious subjects with comedy set at Christmas time. A perfect example of this is The Family Stone, which is funny and zany and has comedic moments, but it works because it allows room and space for those serious moments to land. Hot Frosty, unsurprisingly because it is a movie called Hot Frosty, does not give Kathy's serious storyline any room at all. So, case in point, the detail about her husband being a handyman is delivered completely flat to this sparkly-eyed, recently made human snowman, and she's just like, "Yeah, my husband used to be a handyman and he would fix the house up, but things are kind of falling apart and I haven't been able to figure it out." And he's like, "Well, jeepers, I love to watch television and I'll figure it out for you, missus." Okay. And then there's this scene where where the snowman is like watching a bunch of TV. It's this montage of him learning about humanity, and he like Nosferatu comes on the TV and he's like making a cross out of some metal, and he goes down to the basement and he sees this toolbox and like a folder, and in the folder is this beautifully photoshopped picture of Lacey and the man from the black and white photo on their wedding. And the funniest part of that photo is, one, I do not care what your budget is. take the 8 seconds to put the actors in a dress and a gown and take a single real photo, it will always and forever look a million times better and more real than any amount of time that somebody can Photoshop 2 actors' faces on some stock image bodies, especially since they used the exact same photo of the husband from the black and white photo and the wedding photo. He's just like, he might even be stock photoed. He doesn't feature in the movie at all. I bet he is stock. Anyway, shoestring budget. I don't care. If you are making a 48-hour film project and you have less time than you've ever had in your life, you can put somebody in a wedding dress and take a single photo of them. That way I don't have to look at it and say, that's a fake photo. I feel very strongly about this. I will say, though, however, that the graphic designer in charge of doing the Photoshop did do an excellent job. So congrats to the creative team there. But then, so when Hot Frosty Jack opens this manila file folder, it has a bunch of medical documents in it. And instead of having it handwritten by, a doctor, let me see, I'm going to go here. 1 second. I have to find the font. I know what font it is, but I have to find it. Okay, let's see. I'm almost positive, and I will confirm when I have the chance, it is the typeface Noteworthy. So he opens up the manila envelope, and typewritten on the line, as if we're supposed to believe that a doctor handwrote this, it just says something like, cancer, start treatment soon, in Noteworthy font, the font that's supposed to look like it's handwriting. I was like, no medical office is going to choose that. If anything, they're going to choose Times New Roman, Calibri, or they're going to choose a courier font that looks like a typewriter, okay? You're going to either have a serif, which is the Times New Roman, a nice sans serif, which is Calibri. I feel like we're all, as a people, moving more towards Calibri and away from Times New Roman, except as like typefaces for books. And then you've got the courier, which is like if the person's actually doing like old-timey typewriter, which that's not going to happen anymore in this day and age. So in no planet, in no world, is a doctor going to, I think they would be handwritten, honestly, but in no world are they going to use the font Noteworthy to type the notes. Do you want a little bit of whimsy? Whimsy for the widowed wife? Bad decision. When it comes to those kind of details, I feel very, very strongly and very passionate about it. Handwrite it. That would have been easier. You could have got one single person in the entire world on the entire crew who has slightly legible handwriting, and you could have written that. And then if you're worried that it wasn't legible, he could go, cancer? Because later he asks her, what is cancer? And she's like, it's something that makes you sick, because he doesn't know he's a snowman. There's so many other options than choosing a slightly handwritten looking font for medical documents. So just if anybody who was making films or interested in making films wants to listen to me and one woman's opinion on her video about a Netflix Christmas Cinematic Universe movie called Hot Frosty, always just take the photo. If you're doing like a phone background, a contact ID, something where it's supposed to be a person's face and they're like calling someone, take a photo of that person with a phone and use that. If it's a wedding photo, if you don't want to set up a whole wedding photo shoot and you don't want to have like the good lighting, have it be a quick snapshot at the wedding table while they're together. And for the love of all that is good in this world, just don't use that font on a medical document. Okay, so that really took me out of the story, is I think the point I was trying to make. Anyway, because they do something ridiculous like that, they either have her give the information in this totally blasé, like, sometimes something happens, or they're like, here is the clue that you've been seeking this whole time in the font noteworthy. And it's definitely not written by a doctor's hand. Because of that, either the lack of time and space to have these serious moments land, or because the way that they deliver it is not... It like takes you out of the story because it's kind of ridiculous. Her scenes, and she does a great job acting. It's just that she is acting in a movie about a woman who lost her husband, but unfortunately the camera was filming Hot Frosty. And so her scenes end up feeling really flat compared to some of the other performances. Well, compared to some of the other performances like Craig Robinson as the sheriff or Joe Latrulio as the sheriff's deputy. The two of them, a delight the entire movie. And we'll get into that. But part of the problem too is that Kathy and the Snowman, the two romantic leads, have zero chemistry. It's actually worse than zero chemistry. The vibe they bring to the function is a mother and her weird, slightly stupid son. Now, the actors are pretty close in age. Dustin Milligan is 39 and Lacey Chabert is 41, but because of the dichotomy of the whole Born Yesterday shtick, she obviously seems way more mature. But it's not just that. Every single woman in this town goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over this guy. Like, when Kathy takes him to the doctor clocks him, sees what he looks like, and then she sits down and goes, hey, do you want to come home with me? I can take care of you, which is bonkers for a medical professional to say. And then when he goes up onto the roof of Kathy's house to repair the hole in the ceiling after watching a YouTube video because he's trying to show her an act of kindness and love, this is one of the romantic gestures, he happens to be shirtless with the red scarf wrapped around his waist because he's convinced the red scarf is what's keeping him alive, by the way. An old woman driving down the road sees him, stops, reverses so fast that she like gets into a fender bender and like gets stuck in a snowbank, and then like this horrendously awkward scene where he's trying to like push the snow out and she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't like watching it. And then she takes him to a group of other women and they all salivate over him, and honestly I just was like, they treat this snowman like a piece of meat. I was getting uncomfortable. Like, come on, sure, he's got good muscles, but he is a human being. And if you can't quite class him as a human being, he's at least a person. And if that still fits too neatly into the definition of a human, he is an animated pile of snow with human features, but still. Kathy, however, nothing. Not a single reaction. Aside from her obviously drifting towards the hunky snow sculpture at the beginning of the movie, she doesn't have so much as a Peggy Carter seeing Captain America for the first time moment. You know, like when Peggy sees him and she's like, oh, that kind of deal. Nothing. She is not fazed by his masculine beauty in the slightest. And instead, she immediately is just like, hey, buddy, are you okay? Are you feeling all right? Do you want to come into the diner and get some food? Yeah, come on, let's get some food. And when he starts overheating in the diner, she's like, okay, buddy, let's get you to the doctor. Come on. Like, that is it. Meanwhile, he's bopping around discovering the wonders of jellies and jams and modern television and overheating anytime he steps inside and getting himself into all sorts of weird little happy scrapes. And it honestly feels like she's his mom and he's her weird son. And this is not helped at all by the fact that Jack gets asked to help decorate and chaperone a school dance by one of those lusty old women. And his big romantic overture to Kathy is asking this grown woman to be his date to a middle school dance. I just do not understand the vibe they were trying to go for. It did not feel romantic despite their best efforts. Outside of Kathy and her married friends who ran the thrift store, who were obviously acting in a movie about a woman learning to live with grief, the rest of the characters seemed to be aware they were in a movie called Hot Frosty. Craig Robinson, Daryl from The Office, and Joe Latrugio, Charles Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, are fantastic. They are by far the best part of this movie. Craig Robinson plays the sheriff, and he is single-minded in his pursuit of justice. You just know the second he walks on screen that he knows exactly what movie he's in, exactly how far to lean into it, and he just goes. Like, the way he monologues about justice is hilarious. There's like moments where he's making up a song about fighting crime on his piano. He makes eye contact with the camera at one point. There's this part where Kathy is trying to tell Jack the Snowman, you just want to lay low because you don't want to get caught by the sheriff. And then Jack goes, that sheriff? And the camera pans to the window, and Daryl from The Office and Charles Boyle are both just standing there. Wonderful moment. One of my favorite scenes is towards the end of the movie. He's just monologuing as he goes through the town square, and he's like, where are you, you deviant, you truant? What is it? You get a thrill watching old people's faces when they see your exposed nethers. And then like a townsperson bumps into him and he goes, hey, Merry Christmas. I'm gonna find you. And it just was like the perfect. He played it so well. He made the movie, honestly. So he was really leaning into the absurdity of the story, and it sold it really well because of that. The old ladies and the doctor did the same. The doctor was my second favorite because she was a medical professional, and when Kathy was like, I think something's wrong with this guy, he thinks he's a snowman, instead of being like, yes, that sounds like a serious medical disease, we should check for head trauma, she's just like, what if he was? Wouldn't that be more fun? And she just buys it. In fact, the whole town buys into him being a snowman in the most lackluster way possible. Like, they're all at a Christmas party at Kathy's diner. And this is another thing that bothers me. Kathy's like 100% ambivalent towards Christmas. Like, in the movie, I could see in my heart this being where it's actually like it hits all the things it's supposed to hit, that all the things you want and expect from a movie called Hot Frosty. In that movie, she's like, you could even keep the whole grief aspect, but it could be like, ever since she lost her husband, she's lost her love for Christmas as well, and she's bitter about it, and she hates the cold, and now she just wants it to be summer all the time, and she just wants to be alone, blah blah blah. And then she meets this Christmas snowman, and through his wonder of the world around him, she learns to love life again, love Christmas again, love blah blah blah. And then the Christmas party at the end would be this triumphant return to her, like, I've come back to the person I was before I lost my husband. But instead she's like, hey guys, welcome back to my cafe, my restaurant. It's great to see all of you. This was my husband's favorite thing, and I just love doing this every single year without stop, and this has nothing to do with my character at all. And like, in real life, sure, yeah, you got to keep going even when things are hard, and you know, life doesn't stop, and sometimes doing something that is a tradition like that is good and healthy because it'll help show you that life can be good even after a loss like that. This is not real life that I'm talking about. This is a Christmas movie. And her grief is not tied to Christmas at all. It doesn't make any sense, especially in a movie about a snowman. But all I'm saying is that her complete ambivalence towards Christmas and her very sensible and reasonable outlook on life, where she's like, well, you know, stuff happens sometimes and I'm really sad about it and I'm trying to work through some things and learn how to love myself, but you know, life can be hard, and thanks for coming to my Christmas party, you guys, doesn't give anything for the zany snowman to bounce off of. But anyway, they're at this Christmas party, and the snowman is discovered as the streaker and the thief, and he's about to be arrested by the sheriff. And the lady who owns the thrift store is like, please, sheriff, you have to know, he's different than us. And then one of the other ladies pipes up, and she's like, different how? And the doctor's like, he's a snowman. She just says it. She just says he's a snowman. And Kathy is like, are you guys all buying this, that he's a snowman? Kathy, our romantic lead, who is at this point half in love with this guy already, is half in love with her teenage son, is like, are you guys really buying that he's a snowman? And everybody in the restaurant goes, yeah, that's it. It's just, yeah, sure. It's not even the wonders of Christmas. You never know, everything's magical in December. And it's just, sure. Yeah. And the whole magic snowman the whole magic snowman of it all is just so underexplained, in my opinion. Like, sure, yeah, this is a Christmas movie called Hot Frosty. He's going to come to life. Do we really need to know why or how? Am I asking for too much? Am I expecting too much from my stories when I ask this? But it's just like, there's no connecting lore. Like, no, here's how it would have been perfect. At the beginning of the movie, where there should have been a 10-minute just expositional dump of everything we needed to know about every character, because my spoon is empty and I starve for nutrients in this movie. And I mean sugar calories. I mean empty, useless whipped cream, frosting, Christmas sugar cookie calories that mean nothing at all. That is what I wanted. I wanted to gorge myself on nothing, and they didn't even give me that. They gave me rice cakes when it came to the lore. And I mean those diet puffed rice cakes. But there should have been a 10-minute exposition dump. And then what could have happened is her friend would have been like, I'm playing your favorite song. And she's playing Frosty the Snowman. And then she's like, come on, let's just have fun. It's Christmas. And then Kathy's like, you know I don't like to listen to Frosty the Snowman anymore. It's just, it hasn't been the same ever since my husband died. Or even that's the song we were listening to when my husband died. Like, I say none of this to show any sort of insensitivity towards people who have lost their husbands. It's just, this is a Christmas movie and it should have been Christmas. But it just could have been like, you know, I don't celebrate anymore. I just can't get into Christmas ever since he died, ever since he passed away. And then the friend would have been like, it's been 4 years. I know it's hard, but don't you think he would have wanted you to be happy? And then she would have been like, I don't know. I just can't do it. And then she storms out and it's like, thumpity thump thump thumpity thump thump, look at Frosty go. Thumpity thump thump thumpity thump thump over the hills of snow, while she's like wiping away a tear and going back to her restaurant, because working at the restaurant is all she can do anymore. She doesn't even cook in the movie. She like makes a point to tell the snowman that she hasn't cooked for herself in years and that the head chef makes her dinner. I think she just owns the cafe, but there must be a love of food. That's one of the things that shows her grief. But I just like, it's like she's not even drowning. I don't know what work she's drowning herself in if she's not cooking. I've just gone on 8 different tangents and I'm so sorry. But basically, what I was trying to say is there's no connecting lore there's nothing connecting the snowman coming to life to Kathy, except the fact that she gives him the scarf. But the scarf was a gift from a friend that she found in the donation box for the thrift store. So it's like, it's not even like, this was a very special scarf passed down from my family, or this magical scarf showed up somewhere, or the scarf having like glittery piano when you see it so that you know it's magic, or like a sparkle or something on screen. It's just a random scarf. Even worse, the townspeople just accept he's a snowman because the doctor said, nah, he's a snowman. Like, well, no second opinion. There's like, nobody's even like, it's a Christmas wish I made that Miss. There's a little girl at the beginning of the movie who's like, hi, Miss Kathy, can I have chocolate chip pancakes? And it's not even like she was like, I made a Christmas wish on a Christmas scarf that you would find love. And like, there's no Christmas wish. Nobody even says the words Christmas magic. And like, Christmas magic, that doesn't mean anything, but in these movies, they always bring up Christmas magic. And there's not even like an old man who looks like Santa who like winks at the camera after he like gives the scarf to her. There's nothing. There's just no explanation. The most we get is after the magic already happens and the snowman is alive, the doctor says, wouldn't it be fun and magical if he was a snowman? And that's not good enough for me. It's not good enough. Ugh. Anyway, so after that, just to wrap things up plot-wise, the snowman is arrested. He's taken to the jail where it is 80 degrees and he's really sweating. And when the police officer tries to fingerprint him, he has no fingerprints. So the sheriff is like, clearly you're a spy. And then Lacey Chabert's Kathy is like, Sheriff, you gotta let him out. And he's like, Kathy, you know I can't do that without bail, and bail's $2,000. And she's like, $2,000. So she runs back to the cafe. She gets all the cash she can out of the safe, and she's like, I don't have enough. And right then, I thought they were gonna have a like, It's a Wonderful Life moment where everybody's like, let's get the money together right now. But instead, she and the deputy run back to the sheriff's office, and they're like, Sheriff, what are you doing? You gotta let this guy go. Please take at least the money that I have. And then the townspeople come and they all pass around a hat and do the money. But it's like, why have her go to the cafe, say I don't have enough money in a group of people, and not have them pass the hat around then? Instead, have her run out into the snow and cold by herself a second time so the group can reassemble in a different spot and then do the money? It just seems like a lot of extra steps when you could have narrowed it down to that one scene, and then the whole town could have gone together to the jail. Anyway, once the townspeople do that, they gather enough money, and then he like counts somehow very quickly all this loose cash into somebody's hat, and he's like, you're about $10 short. And then his son is like, here, Dad. And he's like, even you, my boy? And he's like, Dad, you gotta let this guy go. He's my friend. And so he's like, take your money back. I'll let the snowman go. But they go inside, and he's like collapsed like this, and he's sweating and he's sick. And they carry him out into the snow. He's not moving and he's not responsive. And she's like, please, Jack, please. And he's trying to wake him up. And then the doctor, the medical doctor who went to school for medicine and should know how to tell if somebody is alive or dead, she walks up to her and she just taps Kathy on her shoulder and she goes, he's gone, Kathy. She doesn't even check his pulse. She just clocks from a distance that he's dead. That's not very medically professional of you. And so Kathy takes the scarf off of him and she gives him a little Christmas kiss. And then she walks away. And then Jack sits up and he's like, Kathy? And she's like, Jack. And then he's like, I feel weird. Like my arms are numb and my skin kind of burns. And she's like, cold. You feel cold. And he's a real man. And then they have Christmas together, and he gets her a book on house repairs, and he's like, I think your next true love should be you, which counts because the reason she said that she couldn't like be in a relationship and why she appreciated the efforts he was making but like didn't want to lead him on was because she needed to learn how to love herself first, because she couldn't even take care of herself ever since her husband died. And I was like, good. That's the good grief stuff we were talking about. Good grief. But she goes and she fixed the heater herself. And then she gives him, this is where it got me. Okay. Cause it did get me at the end. I was like, you son of a gun, you did it. Basically, there's a moment early on where he's like, wow, Hawaii looks beautiful while he's watching TV. And then she goes, you can't go to Hawaii. You said you're a snowman, right? She doesn't believe him, but like she knows he has this like sweat sickness. You'd melt if you went there. And he's like, that's true. Bummer. But now that he's a man, she gives him tickets and he's like, Hawaii for me and you? And she's like, yeah. And then they're like, I love you. And then they kiss, and it was very cute. And then they go to Hawaii, and I was like, you got me at the end, you crazy Netflix movie called Hot Frosty. So that's the movie. One thing I really did like was that the movie started off feeling really cold and gray and colorless, and I kind of wrote that down as something against it because there was a couple Hallmark movies that I watched when I made my my breaking down the Time to Come Home for Christmas Cinematic Universe video, the TCHFCCU video, where some of those, the color grading made it like they went cool toned instead of like warm toned, and it made the movies just feel so like lifeless and chilly. And it was like, come on, this is a Christmas movie. You got to have like bright whites, bright reds, warm lights. Like that's what makes it feel like cheerful and cozy. And so it started off with that like kind of muted, cooler, chilly winter kind of vibe. But I wrote down in my notes, I wonder if they're actually going to get warmer as it goes on. And that's exactly what it did. As the movie progressed and as Kathy learned to open her heart, the color grading got warmer and brighter, and her clothes and costuming went from blues and grays and blacks to like rich greens and red, and it was a nice attention to detail and good visual storytelling for those aspects, even though they ignored the visual storytelling aspects in the medical documentation, but I've said everything I need to say about that. But the final major issue that I think kept it from achieving the heights that I honestly feel it could have achieved was the score. Now, there were some really solid comedic performances in this, and I feel like with the right music, those comedic beats that worked really well could have been elevated to like truly unironically funny moments, like making this an actual Christmas comedy and not something where we're kind of, oh, I'm watching a movie called Hot Frosty, so let's all laugh at Hot Frosty. This could have been an actual genuinely funny movie with the right music, and those slower, sadder moments could have hit deeper, or it could have given it the space to land, like have those moments land more solidly if the score in those scenes had matched the mood. But instead, there was just this flat, disconnected, like, sounded like stock music that was put as the score throughout almost all of the film. And it wasn't like there was any like themes throughout, any leitmotifs. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word, but there wasn't a theme and then like the rest of the score played on that theme, and like a sad version of it for the sad moments and a happy version of it for the funny moments, and like little musical stingers throughout to highlight the comedy. Like if there had been, like when it panned to the window and you see the sheriff and the deputy sitting there should have been like a little musical stinger to be like burp, because they were there. It was just stock music that didn't match the mood of any scene, and it took the parts that were good and that shone, like Craig Robinson's performance in pretty much any scene, like it took those moments and it just like cut them off at the knees, and like, or I wouldn't say cut it off at the knees, it's more like it cut them off at the mid shin so that they had most of their legs but really couldn't walk anymore. But it just kind of like hobbled. Okay, but it just really, it took what could have been a really truly funny scene, it just made it feel like corporate. It just took the sparkle out of it and was like, guess what you're watching? That's just what it did. And then in the parts that were like sad, where she is, bearing her soul, telling this speech how her husband died, the fact that take care of herself, she was it just took the parts that were really good and that shone and made them fall flat, and the parts that were already flat because they didn't balance well with the humorous moments, it made those feel even worse. Would I recommend Hot Frosty? Absolutely. I feel like overall it was a lot of fun, and it checked the major box that it should have checked, which is funny movie you can watch at Christmas with your friends and you laugh at it because it's a Netflix movie called Hot Frosty. It's lots of words next to that box, but it checked it off. There was so much I wanted from a movie called Hot Frosty, and I feel like this was a little bit disappointing, even though it checked the boxes and it was what it was and I had a good time. I feel like because it felt like it was trying to tell two stories at once, and one story was so serious that it didn't balance well with this like zany Christmas miracle that was happening over here, it really didn't shine as much as I think it could have. So overall, I do think it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I recommend watching it for people who like to watch silly Christmas movies like this. You're gonna have a fun time because you're watching a Christmas movie called Hot Frosty. Like, nobody's gonna be mad at it. We're all laughing at the same jokes. But I just think it could have been even better because there was honestly some really good spots in there. But alas. Anyway, that's all. Ooh, my gothic novel, the gothic novel that you guys always ask about. Thank you for remembering. That's so kind. I think when I left you off, I was telling you I was at the beginning of chapter 12, and I was trying to figure, like, I had just figured some stuff out but hadn't started working on it. If I'm remembering correctly, I finished chapter 13. That's 2 chapters, baby. I'm steamrolling it now. And this book has 22 chapters, so we're over halfway there at this point, which is very exciting. Anyway, it's a little bit early to say Merry Christmas, but unfortunately, I'm like a sleeper agent that has been activated because I heard a jingle bell. And so it's just Christmas from here on out for me. So, Merry Christmas. And go watch Hot Frosty. This is not sponsored, by the way. I just really liked it. Mostly, except for the things that I didn't like and told you about. Goodbye. I like the sleeves of this shirt. I was waving my arms around a lot because these sleeves are so flowy. And listen, it's a detailed man's torso and arms and face, and I'm so sorry to be the one who has to tell you this. But the snowman has snipples. He has snow nipples. It's worse than the Batman suit in the 90s Batman. I think so many different decisions could have been made from the inception of this idea to it being delivered onto our screens, but we live in a world where Netflix released a Christmas movie called Hot Frosty and the snowman has snipples and we all have to live with that. I'm just kidding. It's called acting, baby girl. And listen, it's a detailed man's torso and arms and face, and I am so sorry to be the one who has to tell you this, but the snowman has snipples. It has snow nipples, and I think there were so many other decisions that could have been made between the inception of this idea and to the final product delivered on screen, but unfortunately we live in a world where Netflix released a Christmas movie called Hot Frosty and the snowman has snipples, so we all just have to live with that. Okay, I'm putting my glasses on now. This tomfoolery is finished.